But with that said, let's get to the topic of the day. And the topic of the day is, well, it's April. And there isn't necessarily always going to be a big, meaty, can't miss, biggest single topic in the sport of college basketball or college football or the stuff that we cover. And so I've said it before, really, is I really encourage you guys and girls, if you have any questions, if you want things answered on this podcast, Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com is the best place to get at me. If you do have any questions, please feel free to submit them. I think it makes for some of the best content that we do here. But with that said, I did get a really good question about 3 weeks ago during the Final Four that I thought would be really fun to bring to this podcast at some point, so I'm going to do it today. And that conversation is this. With Coach K out, and I think we all know Coach K, of course, after the Final Four has retired. He is no longer the head coach of Duke basketball, no matter what Jay Williams tells you. With Coach K out, the question that was posed to me was, who is the face of college basketball post-Coach K? Who is the face of college basketball post-Coach K? And I'll tell you this, I really only think that it can possibly be, at least for the next few years, two people. And so let's get into it. Let's discuss. But before we get into those two people, let me say this. I hope we can all agree. Like we can all agree. We can argue about this. We can argue about that. I know we live in a world where everybody loves to argue about everything. But I think we can all agree that over the last, probably 20 to 25 years, Coach K has been, in fact, the face of college basketball. He is probably the single most recognizable coach at one of the 2, 3, 4 biggest brands in college basketball. And so to me, I hope we can start with the fact that Coach K has been the face of college basketball over the last 20 to 25 years. You don't have to like him. You don't have to love him. You don't have to like Duke. I don't think that is really disputable. And really, the reason why I believe that he has been the face of college basketball for the last 20 to 25 years is essentially what I just said. It's a couple things, really. One, he's just been around forever. I mean, we're talking about 40-plus years at Duke. We're talking about you got to be in your early to mid-50s and a diehard college basketball fan to remember a life where Coach K was not the head coach at Duke. So we're talking about anybody that's in their 40s right now, you don't remember it. Anybody in their 30s definitely doesn't remember it. 20s, teens. I mean, I'm in my mid-30s. I don't remember a life without Coach K as the head coach of of Duke. But beyond that, what I would also say is this. The guy has been winning forever, which I do think matters. Like I said, I'm in my mid-30s. I don't even remember the first couple national championships for Coach K under Duke, and that speaks to how long that he's been doing it for. And then the final reason why I believe that Coach K has been the face of college basketball is he creates interest and he creates emotion, right? And we talked about this a little bit with Jimbo Fisher a few days ago. The idea of to be a villain, to be the this, to be the that, you have to cause emotion in people. And that is one thing that I don't think you can deny about Coach K. Now, if you're a Duke fan, you love him and you support him and you go to bat for him, although I'll say, off the record, there's been a lot of Duke fans that tell me the guy drives me crazy sometimes. But it's the people that don't like him that in many ways drive the conversation about him, right? And I understand if you don't like him, and we discussed it over the last 2, 3, 4 weeks. He's done a lot of stuff off the court that just drives people crazy. I was in the building in Anaheim the day that he was lecturing Dylan Brooks, and then he claimed he didn't lecture him. There was how he handled Grayson Allen. There was, the weird Jeff Capel thing 2, 3, 4 years ago. There's been other incidents that just make you cringe and go, dude, what are you doing? And then, of course, I think fans that are not of Duke, that are not Duke fans will then tell you, oh, you people in the media, you cover him differently and you don't go after him when he does dumb stuff. And so why I bring all this up, it's not to relitigate what Coach K has done over the last 25 years. It's to say that whether you love him or whether you hate him, the man does cause emotion. And that's why I believe that he has been the face of college basketball. You can be really good at something, but if you're not interesting, if you don't cause emotion, you can't be the face of the sport, right? I talked about it with Jimbo Fisher the other day. Mike Trout's probably the best baseball player on the planet. I wouldn't know because I don't really watch baseball, and I certainly don't watch Mike Trout because he's not interesting enough. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't say anything. He's not interesting. He's whatever. I would argue Bryce Harper is much more the face of baseball than Mike Trout is. I would argue that Shohei Ohtani, the pitcher/hitter, has a better chance of one day being the face of baseball if he is not already than Mike Trout because he's interesting. Never seen a guy that pitches and hits at both an all-star level. And so Mike Trout can never be the face of baseball. That's okay. He could be a Hall of Famer, but never be the face of baseball. Kind of the same in the NBA, right? There was a time where I think we all thought Kawhi Leonard might be the best player in this league when he was leading the Raptors to an NBA title. But he's not going to be the face of the NBA. He doesn't cause emotion. LeBron causes emotion. KD causes emotion. I think the best example is Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor in the UFC, you have to watch his fights. He hasn't even been a great UFC fighter for the last 3, 4, 5 years. So you have to be able to cause emotion, in my opinion, to really be the face of anything in sports. And so let's get into it, because as I said a minute ago, I really believe that in the post-Coach K world, there can only be, or at least right now in 2022, going into 2023, there are only two men that can be the face of college basketball over the next couple of years. That is John Calipari. And the second one is going to surprise you. I'll save it for a minute. The first one is John Calipari, and I think it goes without saying. It's super obvious, right? First of all, Calipari, like Coach K, Calipari's kind of been around forever, right? First Final Four at UMass 1996. We're now talking 25, 26 years ago that he burst onto the scene. Goes to the NBA, goes to Memphis, goes to Kentucky. And like Coach K, whether you love him, whether you hate him, you got to kind of admit the guy does have a ton of success. And I know even now, like, it's kind of like a punchline, like, oh, a lot of success. Like, and even Kentucky fans, I get your frustration. We're going to talk about Calipari in the next segment with Oscar Tshiebwe. But I bring it up to say, like, even if you want to criticize Cal, you can't deny that the guy has been pretty freaking good during his time as a college basketball coach. First of all, Final Fours at 3 different schools. At Kentucky specifically, 1 national title, 4 Final Fours, 7 Elite Eights, which I don't think people realize how good he has been in making deep tournament runs, 8 Sweet 16s, 6 SEC regular season titles, 6 SEC tournament titles. So one, like Coach K, you can like him, you can hate him. The guy does win a lot. The guy does go into your gym a lot, beat your brains in, walk out with a W, and your fans walk out with a sad face. Now, I understand right now at this moment in time he hasn't been great, but even this year, we criticized Calipari nonstop. Finished second in the SEC, had the team ranked in the top 10 all year, and who knows if they could keep their guys healthy all year, where they end up being, and maybe they don't, maybe they don't end up losing to St. Peter's, whatever. But to what Calipari does better than anybody, I believe, in college basketball right now, he creates emotion, right? Because even when Cal wins, it comes down to what he did 25 years ago at UMass or what he did at Memphis. Forget the fact, by the way, that he was cleared of all wrongdoing personally at Memphis or cleared of wrongdoing at UMass as well. People have this belief in who he is and how he operates. He's emotional. He's a guy that isn't afraid to say how he feels. And so to me, Calipari checks both boxes because 1, he wins an awful lot. And then 2, and I think this is as important, he causes emotion. When he walks into your gym, the Kentucky Super Bowl thing became a hot topic this year, but it's kind of true. When he walks into the gym with Big Blue, you want to win, not just because Kentucky's usually a really good team, but you just do not like John Calipari, and you want to see that guy walk out with his head down. And so to me, John Calipari's 1. I believe John Calipari is really basically right now the face of college basketball. You love Kentucky, you hate Kentucky, but you tune in to watch Kentucky, and I'll tell you this, the stats back it up. There's a reason that Kentucky-St. Peter's game was on CBS during the NCAA tournaments, the opening day of the NCAA tournament. It's because it was the biggest game on the schedule that day, and CBS made sure that it was in primetime. So you guys can say you hate Calipari, but you tune in. You tune in to watch Kentucky because you either love them and you want to see them win, or because you are not a Kentucky fan and you hate them and you want to see them lose. Beyond that, I believe there is one other guy that is slowly ascending along with John Calipari to be the face of college basketball, and I do think this is going to be a little bit controversial, and I cannot wait to hear your guys' and girls' response on this. I think the other guy is not somebody that you're thinking. I don't think it's Bill Self, who just won a championship. I don't think it's Jay Wright. I think it's Mark Few and Gonzaga. And let me explain why. Because a lot of you are going to be like, Gonzaga, they haven't won anything. This team has more national championships than Gonzaga. The fact that you're thinking that and saying that right now is exactly why Gonzaga is and will be one of the faces of college basketball post-Coach K, Mark Few. It's because they cause emotion. First of all, they win a ton. But more than anything, they are a great talking point that's easy to wrap your head around, and everybody has an opinion on Gonzaga. You either love the fact that this small little school in Spokane, Washington, out of nowhere, just turned into an absolute college basketball juggernaut, or you hate the fact that Gonzaga, this small little school in Spokane, Washington, plays in this crappy conference. You don't stay up to watch them. They play in small gyms. Some of them look like there's times where Gonzaga looks like they're playing in high school gyms. And it drives you crazy that all they do is win, 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 dominating the regular season, and then get to the NCAA tournament with a high seed. And then they get there, and what happens? You always tune in for one of two reasons. One, you think it's a really cool story, and you want to see Gonzaga have success, and you want to see them finally get over the hump, and you want to see them win that national title because they've been so close so many times. Or you watch because you hate the fact that they play in a small conference, that they don't have to go into big arenas with crazy fan bases. They're not in the Big Ten where they got to play, 7, 8, 9 really good teams on the road. The SEC, 5, 6 really good arenas on the road. You hate the fact that Gonzaga doesn't do that. And because of it, you watch because you want to see them lose. And then when they end up losing, you run to social media and you say, I told you they were overrated. I told you they don't play anybody. And guess what? You're watching anyway. So that's the point, right? You can love Gonzaga, you can hate Gonzaga, but you watch Gonzaga. You have an opinion on Gonzaga. And so to me, that is why I believe that John Calipari, Kentucky, or of course Mark Few and Gonzaga are the only two people that can be the face of college basketball, the program of college basketball over these next 4, 5, 6 years, because they are the only two on a national scale that absolutely move the needle. And I tell you this as somebody who hosts national radio. There are really only two topics that we can talk about outside of Duke and now Coach K because he's gone. It is Kentucky, Calipari. Is he overrated? Is he underrated? Is he properly rated? And Gonzaga. Is this the year? Do you like him? Do you not like him? Is this a good story? Is this an annoying story? As for everybody else, it remains to be seen. Now, what I would say is, look, there are certain guys that if they win enough, they're going to end up being the face of college basketball by default, right? Jay Wright has 2 national titles. Yeah, if he rips off 3 in the next 6 years and he has 4 or 5 national titles by 2028, then yeah, it's a different conversation about who's the face of college basketball. Same with Bill Self. But with those guys, I don't believe that right now they can be. Jay Wright doesn't cause any emotion in anybody. You're not flipping on to see Villanova pump fake and ball movement and dribble drive. I mean, you do in the tournament because you probably bet on them and you love watching them. But on a Tuesday night, it's not, I got to rush to the TV to watch Villanova to root for them or root against them, to boo them. You do that with Duke. You do it with Kentucky. You do it with Gonzaga. You don't do it with Villanova. Kind of the same with Bill Self. I think in college basketball circles, there's a huge segment of college basketball fans, diehards, that are like, oh, I hate this guy. He's got caught cheating. Nothing's ever happened. I don't like this guy. I'm rooting against Kansas. But on a national scale, I don't even know how many people even know what has happened with Kansas in this FBI stuff, and part of that sucks. Part of it is the coverage. I'm one of the few people that's ever criticized Bill Self during this whole situation with the FBI. If you've been listening to this show for a while, you know that. But I just bring it up to say, I don't know that Bill Self causes conversation. I don't know that Bill Self creates interest in the sport outside of the fact that his team is really awesome. You're not walking to the water cooler and talking about Bill Self. Beyond that, a couple other names, Tom Izzo, he's been around a while. He hasn't won enough, right? He hasn't won enough. I don't know that he's really interesting enough. I mean, he does do the yelling and screaming in a player's face, and he's not afraid to do it. So I do like the fact that he does create a little bit of emotion, but it's also kind of like, Michigan State's made a bunch of Final Fours, but they've won 1 national title in the last, since he's been there. The last title came 20-plus years ago at this point. I don't know that Tom Izzo is going to ascend to the face of college basketball. And then there's some young guys that I think are really interesting, right? I think Chris Beard can absolutely get there if he makes Texas relevant. Texas is always a great talking point. They're only going to be a better talking point when they go into the SEC. And I will say they do have that dynamic of you tune in to root for them or you tune in to root against them, but you always tune into Texas. But they got to win a little bit before I'm ready to put Chris Beard on that level. Kind of the same, Eric Musselman's kind of the same at Arkansas. Yeah, I mean, if he gets them to multiple Final Fours and they become one of the faces of college basketball, which I think they could be over the next 4 or 5 years, then I think they're in the conversation. Hubert Davis is another one. I mean, listen, Hubert Davis went to a Final Four this year. He goes to another one next year. All of a sudden everybody knows who Hubert Davis is. Former NBA player, former Tar Heel, seems to be likable, seems to be, just a guy that people, revere in that community. So maybe he can get there, and maybe John Shire can be too. And what I would say is I don't think Duke is going to go away as an interesting talking point. But as I've said before, what college basketball needs from John Shire is to either be really, really, really good or really, really, really bad. Because the one thing he can't be is like 19-11 next year, and Duke is a 6 seed and they lose in the first weekend. That's not good for college basketball. So we'll see with Jon Scheyer. We'll see with Hubert Davis. We'll see with Chris Beard, Muss, Jay Wright, Bill Self, whatever. But to me, there are only two men that right now can become the face of college basketball in Coach K's absence. That is John Calipari, and that is